Welcome to the Garfunkel Wild podcast. My name is Philip Hammerberg, and I'm here with David Traskey. We're both partners with Garfunkel Wild. Today, we're going to be discussing features that make up effective compliance programs. OIG has identified 7 elements of an effective compliance program. We're going to be discussing the fifth element, enforcing standards, incentives, and consequences. David, what can you tell us about enforcing standards?
Hi, Phil. Thanks. Good to be with you again. I think the first thing is to note that the effectiveness of any compliance program hinges really on the consistency with which the organization enforces or applies the standards that make up the program. And here I'm thinking in particular about two different things. One is consequences for non-compliant behavior, and the second one would be incentives for compliant behavior.
And what are some examples of appropriate incentives?
Incentives are really important because it's one of the fastest ways to create that culture of compliance that we've talked about in past episodes, to get that buy-in from uh, an organization from the top down about the importance of compliance. So first, I think when thinking about incentives, think about the type of behavior that you want to incentivize and how you can creatively do that. A lot of times, the incentives are discussed or thought about among a group of, including the compliance officer, the compliance committee, or the board of directors, to make sure that the incentives that are being offered are both legal and appropriate. And so, one of the things that we would want to steer clear of is things that would be incentivizing behaviors like admissions goals or certain other things that might accidentally put you on a slippery slope to engaging in risky or non-compliant behavior. And so instead of incentivizing things like that could lead to trouble, perhaps think about incentivizing your staff when they achieve compliance goals that are specific to a particular department or a position description. Perhaps it's incentivizing folks who come up with innovations that reduce compliance risks, or for individuals who perform compliance duties that are outside of their normal job description. And those incentives might serve also as the basis for additional compensation, some sort of recognition, or some other form of encouragement. Maybe it's a certificate of appreciation, a special parking spot for a time limited period. There's lots of things that you can do, I think, to foster that desire for compliance within an organization.
Those incentives seem like a great carrot to encourage people to comply. But what about a stick? What are some appropriate consequences?
Oh, the stick. Yeah, there's always the stick, right? So consequences can run the gamut. It really depends on the nature of the issue or the situation itself. Um, Consequences could be anything ranging from re-education or some other remedial type of consequence, uh, or a verbal warning, all the way up to and including termination. Again, it's sort of situation specific, but there are lots of ways to come up with consequences for behavior that is non-compliant. I think the other thing that I would say though is that in addition to having those consequences, it's important to be able to publicize not only the the consequences for failing to comply with an organization's standards of conduct or their policies or procedures, but it's also so that the staff know about the disciplinary process itself. So, for example, who's involved and what circumstances or situations might lead to these consequences.
And how should the consequences be applied?
We've talked in previous episodes, if you remember, about the importance of cultivating that culture of compliance and getting buy-in at all different levels of an organization. One of the fastest ways to lose that buy-in is to apply consequences in a haphazard sort of way. So it's really important that consequences be applied fairly and evenly across the organization without reference to someone's position or title or how long they've been in the organization. Failure to apply the consequences evenly could also land the organization in hot water via allegations of favoritism, or even worse, result in some sort of employment law litigation.
Can you give us some examples of non-compliant behavior?
Oh, the list is long, Phil, but some of the common ones that I have seen in my time, not only at the OIG, but also uh, in private practice, relates to a couple of the following. For example, accessing medical records when you don't have a need to do that, right? That's or other related HIPAA violations. Um, Another example might be engaging in some sort of billing fraud, whether it's upcoding or double billing or billing for services not rendered. I think another one that is somewhat common is somewhat unintentional, but it does happen. Lots of times people may offer you a gift or some other type of gratuity, and even though you don't have the intent to do anything nefarious, you may fail to report that gift in a manner that's consistent with your organization's policy. And then I would say, sort of the last one that comes to mind would be your garden variety drug diversion, particularly in a hospital setting. Um, these are all things. All these examples are things where someone is acting in a way that is non-compliant. But I also want to point out that there might be consequences for staff members who are aware of non-compliant behavior and who fail to report it or intervene. A situation that I'm most commonly thinking of here is in the instance of patient harm, for example.
Um, do you have anything else to add, or have we pretty much covered this topic?
I think we've covered everything, Phil. I look forward to doing it again next time.
That sounds good. Thank you, David. And thank you to the listeners. We look forward to discussing additional compliance program elements on future podcasts.